Are you constantly jumping out of a boat and onto a muddy shoreline while living in the 1500s? Well, don't let your nice shoes get ruined. Get the all-new, waterproof Cavalier boot for all seasons. Slosh through the muck worry-free with these new rubber, made easy to clean footwear. Order now by sending a messenger to 1234 Ancient Road, London, England. Cost is only 2,000 shillings, I think that's a lot, or only 2,000 payments of 1 shilling per month. No refunds, all payments are final, and product is machine washable.
Hot damn!
As a reminder, just quickly please leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a like. Just quick, press pause, leave the rating, then come back and hit play. Thanks in advance. All right, now on with the show.
Lights, camera, action.
And the winner is...
Welcome back to the Oscar Reel Movie Podcast with Haley and Matt Schmidt. Today we have a full schedule as always, with our primary focus being on the Best Picture winner from... What year are we?
1966.
Thank you, 1966. A Man for All Seasons. We'll also have some Real Justice later in the show, so that'll be fun. Stick around, we have a top 5 at the end. I think will be very fun, very interesting.
It'll either be the best one we've done or the worst one we've done.
It's definitely a very debatable top 5, so don't at me, but join in the conversation, right?
I guess, yep.
So, yeah, do we want to get started here?
Yeah, I mean, just to start off the show, I wanted to at least talk about this a little bit, since we're both from the Twin City area and we live in Madison, Wisconsin right now. I know maybe not everybody wants to hear about this, and that's the protesting that's been going on around the country. I mean, if you don't want to hear this, you can skip ahead a little bit, because I understand the idea of just listening to podcasts to escape the world that's going on right now, but I think this is important enough that people should be listening, so I hope you, our listeners, do. But since we're both from, like I said, the Twin City area, I know I've been in communication with my mom, who still lives in that area, and your sister, who lives there. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just terrible what's going on out there, and I think listening and taking action is the most important thing that people can do. I know I don't like getting into politics all the time, but I think it's pretty obvious that there is a group of people out there who aren't being treated as well as they should be in the world. I think that at least in the United States, and I think that hopefully people's minds have been changed. Like Drew Brees came out and said what he said, and I didn't agree with what he did or said, and I thought it was pretty close-minded, but I know he came out and apologized, and all of his teammates kind of backed him in that sense, and even, the President of the United States said, "You shouldn't have to apologize, Drew," and I was happy to see that he replied back to him saying, "No, I should have, and this is why." Mm-hmm. But I just want to wish people out there to stay safe and to let people protest, and for everyone else, I guess, to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, and it's about educating yourself and understanding someone else's perspective. Like, I think that was the biggest thing, that if we want to focus on the Drew Brees thing, because he's like, oh, I would never kneel for the national anthem, because for me, when I see the flag, when I hear the national anthem, I think about pride, I think about my amazing family history, and I think about the military and blah, blah, blah. And I think it was good that so many players came out and said, Drew, my God, like, you're totally wrong. Like, you don't get it. You don't understand it. But they were also willing to say, that's how you feel when you see the flag, but as a black man, as a person of color, as, whatever, I have a different perspective. I have lived in a different type of America. I have had different experiences, and I think people were able to adequately explain that. I'm hoping that does open his eyes that, yes, you, Drew, as a rich, talented white man, you can look at the flag and see that and feel that way, but you also need to understand that is not everyone's experience in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so, it's all about perspective. I saw a really good it's a political cartoon, but it was a good comparison, and it sounds kind of cheesy on the surface, but I think it's a good explanation. It had 2 eagles, and they're just sitting on the couch. They're like, hey, can you believe this? People are saying that owls are predators. Do you really believe that? I'm like, I don't know. It's never bothered me before. I wonder what Mr. Mouse would say. And so it's about just because you don't experience it on a daily basis doesn't mean that it's not happening to other people.
And then the last thing I'll have to say, at least on the Drew Brees-ish matter, is I'm glad to see that there's a different reaction going on right now, because he basically said the same thing 3 years ago, or whenever the height of the Colin Kaepernick taking a knee during the anthem was going on. And he was kind of praised and backed 3 years ago, and other players too, for when they said something like this. So I'll say... I listen to other podcasts and things where people say little wins matter, and it's nice to see that people had a different reaction this time around. So I'd like to think things are moving in the right direction. There's a lot of violence and other bad things that are going on out there right now, but hopefully it all just means that we're moving forward in the right direction.
Yes, exactly. I agree. Mm-hmm. So... something that I wanted to bring up is this thing called the Gray Challenge. There's 6 or 7 people who founded this probably within the last week or two, and basically it's they wanted to highlight a number of documentaries and TV series and movies that are good examples and good history lessons of what it means to be black in America and different experiences that they've had. So we will link some of this stuff to our show notes, but I just want to point out, I know we talked earlier in the podcast, earlier in the year, that we watched the documentary When They See Us, which is about Central Park 5, and so that's on their list. We also have a few Best Picture nominees and winners, so being the Oscar Real Movie podcast, want to highlight a few of those. They have on their list 12 Years a Slave, which won Best Picture. A few years ago, 2013, I think. I was thinking 12 Years a Slave did not win in 2012. It was either the year before or after.
That's how I remember it too.
I'm pretty sure it's 2013. And then they also highlight Selma and Hidden Figures, which are both nominated for Best Picture. So just wanted to give a little shout out for the Gray Challenge. It's about black and white coming together. That's kind of where they got their name for it. So want to do a little highlight on that. If there's some movies, TV shows that you want to check out and learn a little bit. It's always good to, like you said, for people who want to act and participate, learn as much as you can and turn that into action. So that's what I would say. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I was going to say this in the watching, reading, or whatever section, but on Amazon Prime Video, they have a Black Lives Matter section there now. So there's a bunch of movies, Just Mercy is one that I think you would have had to pay for before, but now it's just free to rent, which is one that I know we kind of wanted to see at the end of last year or beginning of this year when that came out. So, check out movies.
I think everything that's on this list, except for the things that are Netflix originals, I think all of these are on Amazon Prime right now, either for rental or free or whatever. Yep. So, definitely check that out. Yep.
That may not have been as short of a quick note on that as I wanted, but I think it would have been irresponsible for us to not touch on it and at least express how we feel on it.
And it's one of those things where like you said, we're here to have fun and have a podcast, but this stuff is important, and especially when there's material out there that pertains to what we talk about, like, why not share it?
Yeah, and I think it's just trying to get people to see a different perspective. Because
Yes.
I know 3 years ago, or whenever it was, I think it was 2017 or 2016. I mean, I think we both know people who are yelling at the TV, like, go to a different country, Colin Kaepernick, or go, find if you don't like the U.S., go to a different country, which isn't what he was trying to say. Like, I think people just were getting emotional and reacting to his actions instead of actually looking at the point of them. So hopefully those people are seeing that now.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
So yeah, what did you have in your watching, reading, and etc. section?
Etc. Just a quick thing. I stumbled upon this on Hulu, but BuzzFeed has a short episode series called Worth It. And whenever
Have we talked about that on the podcast?
I don't think we have.
Okay.
So if we have, sorry, I guess I'm talking about it, but I don't think we have yet. But yeah, so it's like two like 20-something guys, whatever, on Hulu. Each episode is like 12, 13 minutes, something like that. And they pick like one food item, and for the episode they try, like the last one we watched was like mac and cheese. And so it was like out in LA, so they go to a place that has like cheap mac and cheese, like middle of the road, and then like luxury. And so they like eat each of these, and then like at the end determine like, okay, what for the price, what was like most worth it. So it's like I said, it's just kind of a fun like 10-minute show. I feel like a lot of times like Sunday night before bed, and we're like, don't want to get up for work in the morning, just we flip on a few of those, and it's just kind of fun. It's like a casual little foodie show. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to highlight that. It's fun. It's on Hulu.
Yeah. Is that all you had? Did you have anything
else? That was it. Nothing else new. I'm still watching my crummy reality TV shows when I can, and that's about it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I've been watching some movies. I am almost done with the Dollars trilogy, or the Man with No Names trilogy, the Clint Eastwood Western, spaghetti Western. So, watched A Fistful of Dollars, and For a Few Dollars More. I've seen The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, but that was years ago, so I'm rewatching it. I'm doing this because Quinn, who's been on the podcast before, and he's on The Good, Bad, and the Garbage, he had told us that he did not like the movie Unforgiven, and he likes these movies a lot more, so I figured I'd rewatch them. I
never knew that The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was like the third part of a semi-trilogy series.
Yeah, they're not really sequels to each other, but Clint Eastwood plays, basically, I mean, he has the same mannerisms, outfit, and look in every single one, so people just kind of tied them together as a trilogy. I watched Rumble in the Bronx, the Jackie Chan movie, and then talked about it with Quinn and Bo and
I watched a little bit of
the
that.
Garbage of the movie.
A little bit of the movie with you, and it's just the like hovercraft on the golf course thing.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So go check out our video or listen to our episode on that. And yeah, I told myself I would actually try to read a book before our next episode, but that didn't happen, so I'm still stuck on nothing of that, and no new comics have come out, so haven't read anything. Yep.
That's okay.
So yeah, that's all I've got.
Yeah, short little section, but that's okay.
Yeah. Short section, speaking of the trailer park.
We have one new trailer this week.
And it only happened...
I literally found, 15 minutes before we were about to jump on here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was going to be... I mean, we're still going to do...
There's a new trailer! We need to put it on the show.
Yep. And I guess we can talk about that first. So it's the You Should Have Left, which stars Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried. And it's a Blumhouse, so of course, thriller, horror movie.
Flick.
And yeah, it is going to be released on June 19th, I assume on demand.
Yes, on demand. On demand only.
So yeah, this is it's a psychological thriller about a couple, and the couple is Amanda Seyfried and Kevin Bacon, who they take their kid, or Kevin Bacon's kid, to a house that they rented for a long weekend or something like that, I assume. And then a bunch of weird stuff happens and true, horror, psychological thriller fashion. Yeah, I don't know, what'd you think of it? You had a couple jump scares in this.
I did. I would say there were a few parts where I'm like, oh, I know something's gonna happen, and kind of freaked me out. But yeah, I mean, there was one part that, like, really got me. But I think what the trailer does well to, like, heighten the intensity is that in the beginning it starts with the house is like 1,000 light switches, and so Kevin Bacon's trying to hit all these light switches, and the rest of the movie is just like the constant click, 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 click of the light switches, and it just ramps up the intensity. Like, you just feel it. So it looks thrilling, suspenseful. I don't think it's something I want to watch, but I mean, if you are into horror movies, there's nothing else coming out right now, put it on your list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and horror movies are tough. I mean, I think this is a genre that you can kind of get the most creative with.
For sure.
Kind of like Get Out, where there's metaphors to everything. And Us, Jordan Peele movies. But they can be complete duds, too. They can just turn into pointless, gory messes, kind of like... Unfriended? What did you watch? It was on Netflix.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. Something like that.
So they can be, I don't know, I feel like they can either be really good, really bad, not too often in the middle. So it's tough for me to judge on whether I think this is going to be good or not. I'm hopeful because it's Blumhouse, but they'll pump out, 8 bad movies, but then 2 Oscar-nominated ones. So with that company, it's kind of tough to judge. But I think horror movies are usually better when there is a meaning. And I don't even mean it has to be like social meaning behind it, like in the Jordan Peele ones. But as long as there's a point to what's happening and it isn't just a gory mess to be a gory mess, they're usually on the better side. And this one is kind of intriguing because Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried are a couple. Huge age difference there, first off. But it seems like Kevin Bacon's wife, or former wife, the mother of his child, is dead. Mm-hmm. And there's some implication that maybe he had something to do with it.
Right.
They hint at in the trailer at least. So, if there's a point to the craziness that's happening, then that's better. I will say you said it was probably one of the dumbest things you've ever seen in a trailer. He measures a room in the house, and inside the house it measures to like 26 feet long, and then they go outside the house and he measures the same room and it's 21 feet. So he says, oh, it's 5 feet longer or wider on the inside. I flip those numbers. I think it'd be better to flip them, because then it implies that there's a hidden room or something in there. Yeah. I don't get what the point is of having it be 5 feet long.
Plus, honestly,
I get, it's supernatural house, cool, but, I don't know, that was kind of
and I don't know who sits there in a house they've never been to. It's like this, huge place in the middle of nowhere. I don't know who sits in, the room and looks around and I think when I walked around this room on the outside, it seemed different. Let me pull out my tape measure and check it out. So, I don't know. like you said, horror movies can get really creative, which can either be really good or really bad. So, we'll see how that one turns out. It comes out in next week, the 19th?
Something like that, so, yeah. I mean, I'm to the point where just give me new stuff and I'll probably watch it. But we'll see about this one. It's directed by... I've got it up here. David Cope, who hasn't done a lot, but he has done he's done more writing than anything else. But directing wise, he's done some not so great movies like Mordecai.
That's a Johnny Depp movie,
which
right?
I never saw, and I don't think anyone else saw. And he's done some okay-ish movies with horror themes like Secret Window, another Johnny Depp movie. We'll see what happens with this one. But yeah, that's our one trailer, legit trailer, that we have. And we just got it right before recording. And what our original plan was to just talk about some of our favorite trailers, whether we've talked about them on this podcast or not. So I guess we can still do a couple of those just to fill in some of the time here. But I know I went with some obvious ones and one out of the box one. My out of the box one is a movie, Pride and Glory, which came out in, let me bring it up here. It stars Edward Norton and Colin Farrell. It's a cop drama from 2008.
Okay, I was gonna say I don't think I've seen that.
Okay. I remember
like
when
the trailer or the movie. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, so it's about two brother-in-laws, and that's Colin Farrell and Edward Norton. They're both on the police force, and it's kind of a dirty cop situation going on, which at the time that plotline had totally run its course out. Like, I feel like it has at this point, like when 21 Bridges came out. But when I first saw this trailer, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a dark, gritty, really cool movie. Is directed by Gavin O'Connor, who we talked about. We already recorded this, but it hasn't been released yet. But he directed The Way Back.
That's right.
And he directed Miracle and Warrior. So he's a pretty well-known director. Obviously, he hasn't, at the point this movie came out, he hadn't done all those yet. But it looked like it was going to be really good. And then I saw it and it was just kind of meh and boring. But I really liked the trailer.
So the trailer was good. Maybe the movie didn't quite live up to the potential.
For sure.
Gotcha.
So what I have two more after that, but what's one of yours?
One we talked on the podcast a few weeks ago, so maybe I'll just cut through it quickly, but I have been loving the King of Staten Island trailer. Like, I feel like I've watched it so many times. It's just, I don't know, it's just really entertaining to me. So, recency bias with that one, I know, but I feel like when I first saw it, I was like, man, this is like the first trailer that I've seen in a long time that's like really, really fascinating. Mm-hmm. So, I like that one. The other one, I would say the first, like the Black Panther teaser, not like the first full-length trailer, but the teaser. I love that teaser so much. Because, like, it gives you a little background, like, hey, do you even know what Wakanda is? And they kind of tell you about it a little bit. You get this glimpse into, like, they refer to it as El Dorado, and just music is so fantastic. Like, the music in that entire movie is just so awesome, and it just, like, it starts with amazingness in the teaser. So, another somewhat recent one, but it's just super fun. I really like it, so there you go. Go back and watch the Black Panther teaser. It's exciting. It makes you feel pumped up.
My next one is Social Network.
Oh, that is a good trailer. Oh, yeah. The music in that one too.
Yeah.
Good music.
I mean, I'd say good music in trailers is kind of key for me.
Yeah.
And that'll be a thing in my last one too, but Social Network, the initial teaser, I mean, so you don't get a whole lot of the story, it's just a bunch of flashing, friend requests and things like that, with a couple clips in the movie put in there, but then it ends with the tagline, if you don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that initial trailer is awesome, and I think that movie is really good in general, and we'll probably talk about it eventually, but yeah, that's one of my favorite trailers. And then the last one, I've probably listened to it or watched it, I don't know, more than any other trailer, and that's the Logan trailer with
oh my
Hurt.
Gosh, yeah.
With Hurt, Johnny Cash Hurt. I think that the song Hurt by Johnny Cash and the tone of that movie and the character of Logan match up so well.
So perfectly.
And that trailer is so perfect, and it got me so excited for that movie. That's probably my favorite trailer that I could think of off the top of my head.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah. I do like the King of Staten Island recency one. I've watched that one a lot too, which comes out on demand this Friday.
It does. Yes. You know what we'll be doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
If we're not too busy watching golf. This is the first golf tournament since
the Players, round 1.
Round 1 in the Players.
Which is March something.
And we weren't even in the country, so we didn't even see it, so
yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, that's it for trailers this week.
Yep. Cool. And then not a lot in news either. The first thing is just a confirmation of something we brought up in our last episode, which is Henry Cavill is confirmed to be coming back in future DC movies. Not just cameos apparently, but actually in movies. So I know I'm excited for that.
Do you know, will his CGI mustache erasing be back as well?
Yes, he got so attached to the mustache. Actually, they're gonna do different body parts. He's gonna have a
that sounds dangerous.
Yeah, bushy beard. CG that out. But no.
So he's back.
Yes. And I'm excited. I hope he shows up in movies like the Shazam sequel or Black Adam because
Okay.
Are
they doing a Shazam sequel?
I think, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think you saw the first Shazam.
No,
did you?
I didn't. No.
So Superman makes an appearance at the end of the movie, but it is not Henry Cavill. You only see him from the neck down, like the suit.
Okay.
So
they could just have a mannequin there, literally. Unless he moved, but...
He moved, but... I mean,
Okay,
basically,
okay.
yeah. So hopefully he shows up. That'd be cool.
They didn't want to erase out the mustache again.
Yeah, that's it. To cut back on costs, the millions of dollars they spent on CGing that mustache out.
Yeah.
They're only showing Superman from the neck down from now on in movies.
His face is the best part. One of the best parts? I don't know.
Still get the tight suit.
That's true. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is off the rails.
That's alright. And then the last thing is, this is somewhat movie related, but J.K. Rowling kind of got in trouble on Twitter and social media.
So much heat. Deservedly so.
In my
opinion.
I would say, did you read the article or the full tweets?
Yes.
So what are your thoughts on it as a bigger Harry Potter fan than at least I am?
And it started out with a seemingly innocuous thing. It was a New York Times story about, literally it was just about, hey, we have literally 2 billion people in the world right now who are menstruating during this pandemic, and people have even fewer access to supplies than usual, especially if you think about people in war-torn countries or developing countries. And that's what the story was about, but they used the language people who menstruate. And J.K. Rowling went off on this thing oh my god, we can't include trans people in this conversation because if we say people instead of woman, that totally erases the woman's experience. I'm just oh my god, geez, that is not even the focus of this article at all. You're totally overshadowing what the important message of this thing actually is. Yeah, a ton of people have just and people obviously are very, very upset about it. I just saw earlier today Daniel Radcliffe posted a story. He's been working with the Trevor Project for the last 10 years, and he's look, this is not a me versus J.K. Rowling thing, but he's I just want to reiterate, I support all people who menstruate. That includes women, trans women, whoever. End of story. So, yeah. It's been a big shake-up to, the Harry Potter world.
Yeah.
And this is not the first time that she said something controversial, and her fans are, literally, your books seemed like they were all about inclusivity, and now you are kind of showing different colors for yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting. So she's not afraid to tweet in general. It's weird where she'll confirm and just make up these weird fan theories on Twitter, and then she'll also tweet stuff like this. I like how she tries covering her tracks, saying she's still empathetic to trans people.
Oh, yeah.
But when I saw the headline to this, I thought the tweet was just going to be a flat out, I hate these people or things like that, but it still isn't good, but I just wanted to say that.
She's still trying to say that her experience as a biological woman who's always identified as a biological woman is more important than a trans woman's experience. And it's just shut up.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Twitter, or just social media in general. I don't know necessarily why people will do this, because it's so easy on social media for people to either hijack your message or you're just going to get roasted on it. And I don't know. I don't know why people think it's a good idea to do this in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. She's crazy, I guess. So, sorry for another downer of a story. Can we talk about Henry Cavill again?
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. And his good-looking face and body. Back to the lighthearted stuff, right?
Yeah. All right. Did you want to lead us into the breakdown of A Man for All Seasons?
Yes, that sounds good. I will not do the summary of the story, but I will give you all
I'd
facts.
like to see you try to explain it.
Oh my god, no.
Yeah, I think we might do that.
Not for this episode. Okay, so Man for All Seasons, like we said, Best Picture winner, 1966. It is the story of Sir Thomas More, who stood up to King Henry VIII when the king rejected the Roman Catholic Church in order to obtain a divorce from his first wife and remarry. That's kind of the story in a nutshell. This was directed by Fred Zinnemann. It stars Paul Scofield as Thomas More. Robert Shaw, you probably know him from The Sting or from Jaws. Those are like his two other big roles. He plays King Henry VIII. Orson Welles is in this. He plays one of the cardinals from the Catholic Church, Cardinal Wolsey. And then we have Wendy Hiller, who plays Thomas More's wife, and Susanna York plays his daughter, Margaret. So those are kind of the main characters in the story here. The film was nominated for eight Oscars, and it won 6. It won for Best Picture. Paul Scofield won Leading Actor. Fred Zinnemann won Best Director. It also won for Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography for Color, Costume Design for Color, because they had to separate between color, black and white filming back then. The two other nominations they had but didn't win, Robert Shaw was nominated for Supporting Actor, and Wendy Hiller was nominated for Supporting Actress.
Nice. Yeah, Susanna.
Now I pass the torch to you.
Yeah, Susanna York has been in a movie that we haven't talked about yet, but we've watched, a Best Picture winner, Tom Jones. I didn't know. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yes, Tom Jones.
So yeah, I
Excuse
guess
me, I had a little hiccup there.
a little burp.
It was a hiccup.
Okay.
I'm a lady. I don't burp.
Okay. So yeah, this movie covers just a couple of years span. It's in the 1500s, and at the start of it, King Henry VIII, that's who Robert Shaw plays. He is on his first marriage, and he is...
Of what, 6? Is that right, I think? 6?
Yeah, and you know what's the rhyme?
This is what I learned in, like, high school history. I haven't fact-checked it, but I think it's correct. The order of his wives go... Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. I believe.
Yeah.
I should have fact-checked that before I threw that out there. But
yeah,
it's fine. Okay. I'll look into it.
So, he's on his first wife right now, but she can't produce him an heir, so he wants to get a different wife. He has a mistress, Anne Boleyn, I believe is her name, and wants to marry her instead. But they're Roman Catholic at this point. That's the church, or not the Church of England, but the religion of England. And he has already asked the Pope for permission, because at the time you needed permission to get a divorce at the time, and it wouldn't really be a divorce. They would just basically do an annulment and say that it never happened. So he's asking the Pope for that annulment, and he's declining that because he actually needed the Pope's blessing to marry his first wife anyways, because his first wife was Catherine, who was the wife of his brother who died, and so they needed permission to marry her in the first place. So the Pope's kind of like, I'm not gonna give you an annulment after I bless this marriage anyways. So So yeah, King Henry VIII is asking Wolsey, who is his cardinal and also Lord Chancellor. He holds both of those positions at the same time. So he's...
It's like the Chancellor's like a political position, right?
Yeah. And
so
then,
he has like political and religious power.
He's basically, both at the
Dangerous.
same time. Yeah.
Well, potentially.
And Wolsey is trying to find a way out of the marriage, and at the beginning of the movie it opens with him writing a note. We don't see what's on it, and then he seals it, and a runner brings it to Thomas More. That's when we get introduced to him, played by Paul Scofield. And so it's basically, all it says is like, come see me now. And Thomas More goes to see Wolsey, who is pretty much just asking him, we want your backing, or your word that you would be in favor of this divorce and a second marriage. And Thomas More is very much a faithful man, and he sticks to his guns, so he pretty much says, like, no, I'm not going to I'm not going to back it because it isn't within the religion. Like, we can't do that. You know, the Pope is the head of our religion. He says no, so that's what it has to be. And so he leaves, and shortly after that, Wolsey dies, and they make Thomas More the Chancellor.
So he has a political power now.
Yeah, because he's very much liked by Henry VIII because he is so honest and truthful. In fact, that's pretty much when Henry VIII shows up at Thomas More's house, by surprise. He doesn't give anyone any word. He just shows up, and that's when we get introduced to Robert Shaw in that role. And basically, this is probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie, but he's pretty much there to try and strong arm Thomas More into being okay with this and backing it. And Thomas More sticks to his guns, says no. In fact, this is we're already introduced to her, but this is one of the better parts for Susanna York as Meg that I like too, because she is very smart and educated. Thomas More wanted his daughter to have the same education as, other men. So she's a very smart and witty character, and I like her a lot, but she basically has a back and forth with King Henry because he starts speaking Latin, and then she speaks even better Latin back at him.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where we get the character of Henry VIII, where he always has to one-up everyone. He's kind of a crazy person. I mean, I think we get that with you listing what he did with his 6 wives or whatever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's someone who always has to be right, and he always has to be the best. And even when she one-ups him on... Yeah, remind you of anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Even when she one-ups him with the Latin skills, he kind of is pondering and thinking, be like, oh, but can you dance like this? And he starts dancing like, see, I'm better than you because I can do this. So we kind of get the idea that he is completely insane. And eventually we get to the point where Thomas More decides to quit being Lord Chancellor because he isn't willing to back a second wedding. And he basically decides to take the stance of silence is better than me saying anything. Like, I'm just not going to say anything, and then that way they'll ignore me. They'll just forget about me. I'm not going to back the wedding, but I'm not going to publicly say I deny it either. Mm-hmm. So that's what his idea is. So he quietly quits being Lord Chancellor. And then we kind of get introduced to Thomas Cromwell at that point, who is the true villain in this movie. I think he's kind of I don't want to say puppet, but for lack of a better term, he's kind of Henry VIII's puppet, where he is going to do whatever the king wants, and he's the one who really pushes Thomas More to the edge with this. We don't really see a whole lot of Henry VIII anymore after that one scene. So we pretty much, Thomas Cromwell is the one pushing the idea of Thomas More, you have to publicly, say that you approve this marriage. But, so, they break off from the Catholic Church, they start the Church of England, and the king is getting married to Anne Boleyn, and for the wedding, everyone is basically saying, Thomas More, you have to show up to the wedding to kind of show that you approve of it. And Norfolk, who is another character in this, he's a really good friend of Thomas More. He's basically saying no, he's not going to show up to this. Thomas is not going to show up. And the only other scene of Henry VIII we see is the wedding and him getting married to Anne Boleyn. And he thinks he sees Thomas More and runs across the room thinking it's him and it's someone else. So Thomas More did not attend the wedding, and that really pisses off Henry VIII. And the rest of the movie is basically Thomas Cromwell and a couple other lackeys trying to blackmail or, strong arm Thomas More into accepting the new church and the marriage. And we get to a point where the king makes this act, the succession act, I want to say.
Yep.
Where,
Right.
yeah, where it's basically an oath where you have to sign it, otherwise it's high treason. And by signing it, you are approving of the new wife, and if she produces an heir, that heir will be the King of England. But also in it, because Thomas More is actually at this point okay with that, he's like, if that's all the oath said, I would sign it. But it also states that the Church of England is like the church or the religion of England, and that Henry VIII is the head of that church. And that's the part that Thomas More, he doesn't say that that's the reason he won't sign, but that's the reason he won't sign it. So because of that, he gets locked in a tower, spends, they have a scene where they show the 4 seasons kind of go by, like winter, spring, summer, all that. So he's up there for a long time. And they're basically interrogating him, saying, we're gonna, this is high treason that you're not signing this. And he actually says, no, this is not high treason because you don't know why I'm not signing it. I won't admit to any reason of which I won't sign this. You're making an assumption. I'm not saying anything. So he's basically going with the whole, innocent till proven guilty or silence. And they actually say this at one point in the movie, that by definition of the law back then, silence means you have to interpret it as acceptance or agreement. But they're taking it as the other way, where, you're not doing anything, so clearly you must not agree with this. And it ends with him on trial, which is completely rigged. We have a couple witnesses, one being Rich, who's played by John Hurt in one of his first roles ever. And basically his testimony is mostly a lie, and Thomas More stands up and says that this is perjury, but it doesn't really matter. This whole thing is rigged. Even the jury, when they get up to go deliberate, Thomas Cromwell says, do you even really need to deliberate? And doesn't let them do it, and they basically just give a guilty sentence right there. And then, so Thomas More is guilty of high treason and not accepting of this new church and marriage and religion, and gets beheaded. So that's basically how the movie ends. It ends with a little bit of a voiceover too, with a little expansion, Meg, his daughter, took his head from where it was put on a spike.
Yeah.
And she kept it for an X period of time. I don't even know.
Too long.
Says Thomas Cromwell was beheaded as well, which just goes to show how crazy King Henry VIII was, because Thomas Cromwell, at least the way that the character in the movie is portrayed, was very much backing the king, but he got beheaded anyways. So yeah, that's basically how the movie ends. It's a movie about someone who stands by their morals, is trying to take down a quote-unquote corrupt system, or at least standing up for what he thinks is right. So, at least on the whole, or by the description, it's a pretty intriguing movie of, someone fighting for their rights and standing up for what they believe is true or right, and even going to their death because of it. So, with that being said, what did you think of Man for All Seasons?
That is a perfect segue, because I do, without knowing a whole lot about Thomas More coming into this, but I at least knew the story of King Henry VIII, and the fact that he basically started his own, branch of Christianity, his own branch of religion, just so he could manage his marital relationships. And it's still, the religion that is practiced today by the royal family in England. That's a huge change. That is a huge shift. And 500 years later, that's still, the primary religion for the family. But this story fell so flat. It was so bland. It was so dry. And I think that's what's tough. It has potential. I said, this is very interesting stuff. But it was just, I did not enjoy it at all. It was so tough for me to get through this one. It was not a fun watch.
No. Is there any specific reason as to why?
Yeah, some of it is, it's disappointing, because you'd think that be some more intrigue in this, but I think because I get that ultimately it's like a political kind of move, but it was just so policy driven and all about this oath, and it just got kind of long and drawn out. But, like you said too, like Thomas More was willing to, go to prison or whatever, and you see him, locked up for more than a year, and it's like he did these things for what he thought was right, and here's his, poor wife and daughter who barely get to see him, and it's like he didn't even prevent anything. So I think that's like the sad part of the story, and I suppose that's probably part of why they wanted to tell it. It's like, hey, look what this guy tried to do. He didn't stop it, but at least he tried. He was someone who actually stood up to the king, but it's just sad that it didn't work out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I said beforehand, I think I know why you thought this movie was boring. The two main themes of this movie are religion and politics, and I know you think politics in movies can be quite the drag sometimes.
It can be very boring.
I know you in the Star Wars you think you
like literally it was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was like, oh my god, I think I just realized that Star Wars is like political. I'm like, that's probably why I don't like all of them, because sometimes they just get too deep into that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the original trilogy gets too deep into it, but you have to understand the structure of the Empire and a little bit of what's going on to get it. The prequel trilogy, very much so, politics are involved.
Yeah. But like, as a kid and stuff, just like, oh, this is sci-fi, this is cool. And then, I think, like, once, like, Force Awakens came out, we watched some of the older ones, I'm like, oh, this is much more politically driven than I ever picked up on when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, well, let me see if I can, like, figure out what's going on here. And I'm like, I'm not really following everything that's going on. So, it's if it's done well, I get it, but this was not an interesting way to tell this story for me.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I definitely see where you're coming from, and I do think this movie kind of drags or is a little boring at times. I didn't dislike it as much as you. I think it's an intriguing story if you're able to like invest your time in it or pay attention to it or completely understand what's going on. Because I will say this is a movie, whenever politics or things like this are going on, sometimes I have to like pause it and do a quick Google on who someone is and get a full understanding. Because I know partway through,
very helpful for this movie. It's like you gotta know who the players are.
Because I was partway through, we were like, wait, Wolsey was the cardinal, but they're saying he was the Lord Chancellor. Like I didn't realize he was both until. I mean, I think they do say it at some point in the movie, but we kind of did a quick search, but like, oh, he was both at. Okay, all right, well that makes sense.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, this is a movie where, not a lot of action is taken in it. It's a lot of people.
Dialogue.
It's people sitting in rooms arguing over laws and interpretation of laws. So in that sense, a lot of the subject matter is kind of bland and boring, but it is still a story of a man sticking up for his rights. So it's kind of intriguing at the same point. So I didn't think it was as boring as you may have thought it. I know when I first watched this as a kid, back when I was doing my whole try to watch all the best picture movies in middle school, I definitely thought this was boring and did not understand what was going on at all. Rewatching it twice now with you, like once last year and then rewatching it again for the podcast, it was a little more intriguing, and mainly probably because I understood what was going on a little bit more. So if you can follow along, I think it is really interesting. There are a lot of good parts of this movie. Like I said, I really like King Henry VIII's first introduction, or Robert Shaw's portrayal of him in the movie when he, hops out of his boat and lands in mud, and he's got this preposterous, loud voice, and he's so, I don't know, he's interesting. He's not charismatic, but he's volatile and crazy, but I don't know. He was really good. I thought he was really good. It's hard to describe his character.
Honestly, like that was the highlight of the movie, was any time that King Henry was on the screen, because Robert Shaw was he was like bold and garish and just like like you said, like he's just like obnoxious. He shows up unannounced, splashes in the mud, and he's got this. I mean, like the clothing in the 1500s is obviously very different than what we've got now. But even like for the king, he's got all these robes, and he has this like giant gold like cape over top of everything else. It's so wide and preposterous. Like it reminded me of like Carol Burnett in that skit where she's like Scarlett O'Hara and she pulls the drapes like with the curtain rod off the wall. Like that's almost what he looked like, because it was just like he was just like covered in fabric, and it was so insane. And it's like part of me's like, oh, I wonder if that's really what King Henry was like. I'm like, he started his own religion so he could divorce his wife, so I wouldn't put it past him to just act like that on a normal, like on a daily basis, you know?
And that is crazy that this is all comes down to basically, I mean, he started his own religion, which is still going on today.
Yep.
Because he wanted a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself is intriguing enough of an idea to make this movie that is just insane to think about.
Yep.
Another part that I liked, so Norfolk, he's a character he's friends with Thomas More, but he's very much a person who like he'll go with the flow of everyone else if it means that he's okay. Like he isn't gonna stick his neck out like Thomas More, but he is friends with him and tries to talk to him and get him to change his mind. And there's a scene where he's talking with Thomas Cromwell and Rich in the room, and it's kind of earlier in the movie, and they're talking about Norfolk isn't there to talk about this, but they're talking to him about ways to blackmail Thomas More, because earlier in the movie, so Thomas More is a lawyer too, so he was listening to like trial cases or civil cases, stuff like that, and he was given this silver chalice as a bribe. He didn't know it at the time, but when he realized it was a bribe, he was sitting in the boat going back home, and he like throws it in the water because he realized what it was and he doesn't want it. But the boat driver, the rower, basically the taxi driver, of the 1500s.
The boat taxi driver, yep.
It's like, what are you doing? He takes it out of the water for him and gives it back to Thomas More. He then gives it to Rich, who is John Hurt's character, who at the time is a protege of Thomas More, but he wants to move up in the world, and Thomas More doesn't really give him that avenue to do so, because when he gives him the chalice, Rich takes it, so Thomas More sees that as like, oh, you're willing to take a bribe. But anyway, so they're talking to Norfolk about, oh, well, Thomas More actually took a bribe, so we can use that to blackmail him. And he's like, no, he didn't. What bribe did he take? And they go through the series of events, and they bring in the woman who bribed him, and she gives like her quick 2 cents to Norfolk about like what happened. And basically Norfolk goes, wait, you said that this case was put into trial in April? Well, Rich sold this chalice in May. So clearly Thomas More, as soon as he found out it was a bribe, he got rid of it. Like, I don't know, like that was kind of cool, like just seeing party A try to blackmail someone and then party B like fight back and be like, no, this is clearly what happened. Maybe that's why I like courtroom drama so much, seeing that back and forth, but seeing that in this one scene was really cool. So I did like that. Like, what did you think of Thomas More, the character himself? I mean, he's a good person at heart, right? Because he's standing up for everything.
Yeah, but there was nothing. Like, usually characters like that, they try to give you something that you can relate to them and you can feel that same compassion they have. He was just so dryly like, no, I'm not gonna pass this. Nope, I'm just like, he never had any like outward emotion. He would just say, this is how I feel about it. And so it's like there was no connection between me and Thomas More.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, obviously I understand what he was trying to do, but at the end of the day, it's just like, you're giving me nothing to actually connect with you on a human level.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
You're waving your hands in the air
oh my
right
gosh,
now.
I know.
I will say, at the end, he is a good person. He is like a hero in that sense where, you know, heroes are villains, but there were times where he was pretty frustrating to me. Like, his daughter is asking for his permission to marry this, I think his name was Roper, something like that. And basically Thomas More was saying no because he was a Lutheran. So, I mean, he's frustrating.
Those damn Lutherans.
I know, right?
I'm one.
Yes.
So I can make that joke.
He was frustrated at some points where it's like he's so close-minded on things. I'm just like, okay, come on, like let's open your mind a little bit, at least to little things like that. And there were times where I thought he was pretty naive, like thinking that staying silent would win him his freedom. I know by law he was right, but there's no way that that's actually going to work out in the end. And maybe that's the point. He's willing to die by his morals and values like that, but I thought he was pretty naive where he truly thought he would get out of certain situations by being silent. But I mean, that's just me thinking of it.
For me, it's... I mean, I guess I don't know how big of a deal divorce was back then compared to now. I mean, obviously it was treated differently because he freaking started his own religion.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think it was pretty much treated pretty poorly until recently, right? Like even our grandparents were.
I know, but it's like when we're talking about like morality and rights and blah blah, it's like he's trying to uphold someone else's marriage that isn't even working out anyway. So it's like when you compare it to other things you could be fighting for, some of the other things we've talked about in this podcast, it's just like, it's not like the biggest thing you could stand up for.
Yeah.
But I mean, but in the 1500s too, like that stuff had a different perspective and it carried a different weight than it does now. But it's just...
Yeah, who knows? Some people back then might have said this was the most important thing to stand up for, but we don't know, I guess. Yeah. And I will say, like, the fact that it didn't really do anything in the long run was a little lackluster for me.
That's the thing. Like I said, he spent this time in jail away from his family, and nothing happened. Nothing changed because of what he did, which is, that's sad that's how his story played out. Yeah.
So I shouldn't say I was disappointed with that, but you're right. It was sad that's how what happened. But, I'll say I was happy that he told his wife and daughter to sign the oath, and I'm happy that he was willing to stand on his own for it and not make the rest of his family die because of his beliefs or discretions.
That's a good point.
I'm glad he was, willing to be the only one to do that.
Yeah,
Because it's always kind of sad
that gives him a little more, like, credit back for him to realize, like, okay, this is a decision I've made for myself, and I'm realizing this is where it's going, so I don't want my wife and daughter to be impacted the same way. So at least he was willing to see that and compromise a little bit.
A couple little trivia things, and then I'll give my score.
Okay.
Paul Schofield, who he played this role in the play.
Oh, okay.
So a familiar role for him. He did not attend the Oscar ceremony, believing Richard Burton would win for Best Actor for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. When he won, the statuette had to be mailed to him and was broken in transit.
Oops.
Peter O'Toole was the first choice to play Henry VIII.
Oh.
Which, I'm kind of glad it was Robert Shaw, because Peter O'Toole, great actor, but I don't see him playing that, like, loud...
Not as
character.
outlandish.
Character.
Yeah.
He's more reserved in his acting, so I'm kind of happy it was Robert Shaw. And then, according to Orson Welles, he had Fred Zinnemann, the director, removed from the set and directed his scenes himself. Zinnemann never confirmed or denied it, but I could see Orson Welles pulling a move like that. He was very full of himself, so that was kind of
how fitting that he played a character who had, like, ultimate religious and political power.
Yeah.
I'll direct it myself, don't worry.
I think this movie is good. If you're into history, I would definitely recommend this movie, but I wouldn't recommend it for a casual movie fan. Like, I'm not going to recommend this to our most of our friends are family, but if you are a history nut, this is probably worth a watch. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. We'll get into whether we think it should have won Best Picture in a little bit, but I don't know. I guess what score would you give this movie? I don't know if you had anything else. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about? I mean, feel free to bring it up.
No, and I think some of it will kind of come up when we get to Real Justice. So no, I think I've said all that we need for this. I was looking at the other scores I've given out and just thinking about our other Best Picture winners. I'm like, Greatest Show on Earth is very low on my list, and I didn't even like this one as much as I liked Greatest Show on Earth, so I can't give it a higher score than that. Ooh. So I have given this the same score as the Greatest Show, which is a 5.4, very, very low on my list. But like I said, it's so bland. It's uneventful. It's just I don't think it translates. It's based off a stage production, and I think it translated so poorly. I'm
very surprised it's that low for you. I mean, that's fine. I didn't think anything would be lower than The Greatest Show on Earth, I guess, is what I mean.
Like, there is nothing in this that's enjoyable besides, like, the visuals.
Yeah. I gave it a 7.9.
That might be our biggest discrepancy yet.
Yeah, we'll 7.9 to a 5.4. Yeah, a little bit of a difference
pretty big
there.
Gap. But yeah, that's fair. It's not, like you said, it's not for everyone. Mm-hmm. So, okay.
All right, on to a quick review of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which came out the same year, was most likely the runner-up for Best Picture. It stars Elizabeth Taylor. It only has 4 credited roles in it, which is kind of crazy. But it stars Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, George Siegel, and Sandy Dennis. Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, they were married in real life at the time, but they play a bitter aging couple who, with the help of alcohol and the use of their young house guests, they basically yell at each other and get mad at each other for the course of a night. So, that's the brief description of what happens in this movie. This is also based on a play.
It is. Yeah.
So it kind of is. I can see this being more based on, maybe it's because it's like the one location or one setting. Versus... So
yeah, they really only had like 2, 3-ish scenes.
Yeah.
Locations, if you will. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This was directed by Mike Nichols, which was his directorial debut, I believe. He would go on to win an Oscar for directing The Graduate. The very next year, I think, actually, 1967. And yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts? I think you finished this earlier today. What were your thoughts on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Yeah, I think, where I said Man for All Seasons didn't necessarily translate that well from stage production to like on screen. I think this did a really good job, and there were some aspects of it that felt very like they kind of gave the nod to the stage production, where it's like they had the camera fixed and like one side of the room, and you watched all of this action, like continuous action happening in front of you without any cut scenes, without any like camera movement for like a minute or two. It's like that gave you that kind of, we're sitting in front of the stage production here, but then they also were tied in like typical movie like cinematography too. So I think it had that good blend of, okay, this is a stage production, but we're adapting it to screen, and I think that worked really well. The acting, so there's only 4 credited roles, but I thought the acting was so phenomenal. Just really, really interesting characters. I mean, when so Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton, their characters are George and Martha, when they first come home after this party, that is like just one of the best like openings to a movie. It's 2 a.m, they're already drunk. It gets worse as the night goes on, but they're drunk and they're arguing about stupid stuff, and they're picking fights, and they're so sarcastic, and she grabs a chicken wing from the fridge and she throws the bone back in, and they're just like all over the place. And so I think from the start, it's like you get pulled into their life, into their story pretty quickly. It's a very emotional like movie. Like, emotions are so loud and out there, and visceral. So, like, it's kind of heavy.
Stressful
Very heavy.
to watch.
It is, yeah, it's very stressful. But I thought it was a really good story.
Yeah, I like their opening argument is her yelling at him, like, what's the picture? Like, she keeps describing a movie, and she's like, what's the picture? I feel like that's an argument we would have. Maybe not to the degree of them, but it's like, what's that movie? And just trying to describe it. What is it? What is it?
She walks in the house and she's like, this place is a dump. And she's like, what a dump. What is that from? And yeah, they just keep going on and on. Yeah.
Sure. I love Richard Burton and his performance. I love his dry, sarcastic humor.
Oh, they're so sarcastic
in
with
this,
each other.
Basically, whenever he's in an argument with Martha or whatever, he's just talking to her in general, and she tells him to do something or disagrees with him, his response is always like, yes, love, whatever love wants. Like, he's always just, yes, yes, yes.
But then also, like, he's pouring her a drink, and he's like, oh, rubbing alcohol for you, Martha? You know, just like, he just does these mean things.
Mm-hmm. Or the fake gun bit.
Oh my god. Yes. He walks out of the room while the other three are talking, and
well, she's making or telling a story about him, like where she punched him in a boxing match. So it's an embarrassing story about him. Yeah. But yeah, he's telling it, and while she's saying it, you see him go in the closet and grab a gun, and he points it right at her head and pulls the trigger, and it's one of those an umbrella pops out or something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I don't know, a very intense, stressful movie, like we said. It's a little long. I think it's over 2 hours, and I will say there are some parts where I thought it maybe got a little too long. I'm like, you're going to probably cut this out, cut that out. Overall, it's pretty good. So you rewatch, or you fell asleep during this movie.
It was so emotionally riveting, I fell asleep. No, it's just one of those things. I just fall asleep in movies.
So you rewatched the ending
yes.
While I was out tonight. Did you catch the thing with their son? So throughout the movie, they're bringing up their son and...
Well, I was like, can we take a step back for a second? So it's like the two of them are at this party because they're professors, right?
He at least is.
Yeah.
Her dad
used to...
He's the president of the college. Okay. So her dad is like Richard Burton's boss.
And so like they meet this other couple at the party, and the guy, he's a professor too, and so they're like, hey, come over. And so it's like this older couple, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, and the other two are like, they're in their late 20s or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like the four of them just like basically commiserating the rest of the night. Mm-hmm. Is kind of like the story. I don't think we talked about the younger couple that much, so I just wanted to throw that in there real quick.
Yeah. Well, they basically use the younger couple to, like, argue with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. They find things in their lives like, oh, well, I'm going to argue with you about this now because they've talked about their kids
she
and whatever.
Flirts with the younger man, eventually sleeps with him, just to kind of piss Richard Burton's character off. But, yeah, early in the movie, Martha brings up their son to Honey, who's the younger wife. And George clearly gets upset about it initially, the fact that she brought him up. And so we kind of get a sense that there's something weird going on there. The first time I saw this, I assumed that he must be dead or something like that. Like, why else would he be upset that Martha's bringing up their son? Like, he must be dead.
He's a 16-year... Like, they said, tomorrow is his 16th birthday, and they're like, it's 2 a.m. Why isn't he home? And it's like, you know that something's going on.
And throughout the movie, they kind of argue about little facts about him, like, oh, he's blonde and has blue eyes. No, Martha, he has green eyes, or vice versa. I think he says he has blue eyes, and she says no, green eyes, and they kind of argue about little things. And by the end of the movie... you find out that they actually don't have a son, and because neither of them can have a kid. They said that it isn't just one or the other, it's neither of them can have a kid, and they made up a son to kind of cope with it. So he's not real at all, and they, I guess, promise, because they do this thing where they play games with people, sometimes maliciously, like with this younger couple, they play a couple interesting games. But this is like their own game where they have this son and they're allowed to like make changes to him and do things like that. But George, in front of like other people, says that he's dead, which essentially like kills their son, so they're not going to talk about it anymore. And Martha like loses it. Like that's like the most brutal thing he could ever do to her was to kill their son. But I think in the end it's kind of a cleansing or something like that to kind of move on and to maybe face the realities a little bit. I get the sense that they end the movie with the two of them on a better note than you might have expected it to end on them with.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
And I should have said this earlier, but a couple trivia notes on Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. It became the first movie at the Academy Awards in cinematic history to be nominated for every Academy Award category in which it was eligible for.
Oh my god.
It was the first movie where its entire cast was nominated for best for acting. I mean, I get it was only four people, but still. Elizabeth Taylor gained nearly 30 pounds to play the role of middle-aged wife just for this movie.
And she was playing a character that was like 20 years older than what she was in real life.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy to think. I mean, Elizabeth Taylor at this point,
She's so incredible. Like, I loved watching her.
Oh, she was amazing. This was so against type for her, where she's coming off of movies like Cleopatra or Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, where she's just playing this very powerful but very just attractive woman, because, I mean, that she was like...
Hot young thing.
Absolutely. But here's this movie where she gains 30 pounds, she's smoking the whole time, drinking the whole time.
Just wrong.
The first image, so the credits are them walking back to the house, but the first time we see their faces, the characters, it's them walking through the door and they turn the lights on their house and it's this close-up on their faces, and it's just her with this cigarette in her mouth looking terrible. Like, it's a fantastic performance by her, kind of going against type.
We've all seen 2 a.m. drunkenness.
Yeah.
And that's
where this starts. This starts at 2 a.m.
That's where it starts. That's the picture.
Mm-hmm. So, crazy. So, yeah, really, I mean, interesting movie. It's clearly driven by the performances, because it's just the four of them in one or two settings. But I think a really well done movie. Some cool camera angles too, with Mike Nichols in his first directorial role. There's some scenes where he's really following the characters and some interesting shots and different angles.
Yeah.
What score would you give? Or no, we're gonna save the score for after we do Real Justice. So never mind, we'll get to that.
I will hold on to my score.
Okay. So yeah, let's dive into Real Justice then. Between A Man for All Seasons and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So why don't you go first with the more technical category?
For me, this was the highlight of A Man for All Seasons. The costumes, the set design, all that stuff I think was really well done, especially, when you're talking like Renaissance England and you're following the king. Like, there's a lot of opulence there, and so I think they did a really great job with that. Like I mentioned, they won for costume design and stuff. So I'm giving technical to A Man for All Seasons.
Mm-hmm. I am as well. I did think this was a little closer for me, because I think there's something to just the one setting and becoming very intimate with a house or something. Like, there's some movies where I appreciate it when they're in a house, or at least it's shot so well, like Parasite, where you get to know that house so well that you feel like you could navigate through it. Mm-hmm. And I did feel that way with the house in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. But yeah, the costume design, the costumes in general, and some of the set pieces in A Man for All Seasons were really good. I mean, it's pretty easy for period pieces to win out in these categories. So yeah, I'm going to give it to Man for All Seasons as well.
Okay. Awesome.
Music and score. So I'm giving this to A Man for All Seasons just solely because there's literally no music in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And there isn't a lot in A Man for All Seasons either, but there's a little bit more, I think, to add to the epicness-ish of the movie. So that, kind of close as well, but I guess I'm going to give it to A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like, neither had, much impact in the overall feel of the movie with the music.
No, yeah.
And like I said, I think Virginia Woolf, yeah, it was only the very beginning and the very end. But I really liked the music, and so that's why I'm going with Virginia Woolf. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? There wasn't much there, but it was interesting because the intro music, I'm like, oh, this is like so subdued and peaceful. Like, I wonder what kind of night this is going to be. And it finishes with the same song, and so it's like a weird, like the movie starts almost opposite from music, but I think by the end it kind of matches it. So, I don't know, that played, I guess, bigger importance to me than what was in Man for All Seasons.
Okay. What about writing? What's your opinion there?
Virginia Woolf, hands down, writing was better in this.
Hands down, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So they were both nominated for screenplay, and since they were both based on a play, they were nominated in the same category.
Yep.
And A Man for All Seasons ended up winning that Oscar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. It is tough because they're both pretty dialogue heavy because there isn't a lot of action going on. But yeah, I gave this to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf basically solely because I thought the way the characters interacted was a little more realistic, and I don't know. I was more intrigued or excited by it. Like you said, we kind of got bored from time to time watching A Man for All Seasons, and I think part of it is the dialogue. Just because there are big words in a movie does not mean that it's great dialogue. There are some words I'm like, whoa, there's a word for you that I don't.
It's a $5 word.
Yeah,
right?
as they say. But I thought the dialogue was more believable in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and to have a fairly exciting or captivating movie to only take place in like one or two settings, I think is quite the achievement.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm going with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf for this one as well.
Okay.
For acting, I think this one was pretty easy. I mean, I know there's only 4 people in it, but I'm going with Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I think all 4 of them were great. I think 3 of them were phenomenal. I think Honey was good but not great. She was kind of that stereotypical drunk woman from time to time, but I think they're all fantastic. Elizabeth Taylor won the Oscar. Richard Burton lost to Paul Scofield, so I mean Paul Scofield did win too. I will say Wendy Hiller, who played Thomas More's wife, was nominated, and so was Robert Shaw. So, like, they both have a lot of nominated performances, but I do think overall the acting was better in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, I agree. And I would counter with, I actually enjoyed Honey's performance better than Nick's performance. Yeah, she does have kind of some of those stereotypical things, but it's like her emotions were so far all over the place that I think it was just amazing for her to just, because she's almost like manic in the episode, where like she had moments where she's just like super excited, some where she's super sad, and I think she did a great job, and you understood all of the emotions that she was giving. So long story short, we both agree that acting goes to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
That's fair. Okay, well, which one did you enjoy more? I think I have a feeling on which one.
Which one? What's your guess? Where do you think I'm leaning on this one?
Well, I mean, you fell asleep during both, so
yes,
that evens out.
Yes.
But I just know how you felt about A Man for All Seasons, so I assume that you liked Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf more.
Yes, I did like that a lot more. You're right that there were some scenes. Usually when it was like, there were 2 really long scenes where it's just the guys, or it's just George and Nick, and it's like, oh my god, like, really, we're still on these 2, like, they're still talking about this. I'm like, what are the women doing? Like, the women seem like they have nothing in common. What are they doing right now, So it's like, some of those scenes got a little bit long, but overall much more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, for sure. Even towards the end, there's a scene, it's like one huge long shot where Martha's outside looking for, I assume, George, and she's walking in the yard, stumbling, because they're all drunk at this point, going from the car, which she had kind of crashed when she pulled into their house,
Yeah.
She looked. It was just one continuous shot of her looking around the yard. I'm like, okay, we can cut away a little. At least in my opinion, I'm not as versed or like into a lot of the technical things of movies as some people. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who appreciate that long shot, and there's probably some subtle reason as to why it's important. But I think there's a decent amount that probably could have been cut out of this movie. I mean, it's over a 2-hour movie about 4 people yelling at each other. I mean, the dialogue and acting make it very interesting, but it probably could have been cut a little short. That's a really long way of saying that I enjoyed Virginia Woolf more than A Man for All Seasons. At the end of the day, when I sit down and think about which one did I enjoy the first time through watching it, it's Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. So my score for it, since we can give our scores for them now, is an 8.6. So a little higher than 7.9 for A Man for All Seasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gave this one 8.2, kind of the reasons I mentioned. It was really good. I loved how emotional and intense it was, but yeah, there were definitely some scenes that got a little bit long.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that was what, 4-1 for you for Virginia Woolf?
Yes.
And 3-2 for me. So we both you would say you would have rather have had Virginia Woolf win Best Picture, at least when comparing the two to each other?
Yes, I would.
All right, fair enough. All right, so now I figure we can do a quick run through of the other categories, bigger categories at the Academy Awards that year. I mean, again, this happened in the 60s, so I'm not going to be doing too much reworking here at all, but I figure it's always good to run through who was at least nominated that year. So
spoiler alert, there's a lot for Man for All Seasons and a lot for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, well
like we've already said.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, I mean, that it was nominated for 12 Oscars that year, which was the most out of any movie.
Oh my god, I didn't realize they'd been nominated for that many.
Yeah, and they won 3.
Okay.
They won 3. Best Actress, Elizabeth Taylor. Best Supporting Actress, Sandy Dennis, who played Honey. And I think cinematography, something along those lines. So yeah, it was the front runner to win. So it was kind of a surprise when A Man for All Seasons won 6 of its 8 nominations, including Best Director and Picture.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at these other nominees, and like you said, I mean, I didn't realize I had 12 because I only looked at the main categories. But I feel like looking back at this, kind of like how I looked at Clockwork Orange. Did that go up against French Connection?
Yes.
Is that right? Am I getting that right?
Yep.
I feel like there's some similarities where it's like things have changed over time, and there are certain topics and subjects and even language that's used that was, not mainstream back then, but it's more acceptable now. And I feel like a movie like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf would stand up better today than it did back then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this had anything to do with like deciding what won Best Picture, but back then, I don't know. Like, I just looking at the two themes on a whole of destructive people just yelling at each other, and here's a movie about a man like inspirationally standing up for what he believes in. Maybe that had something to do with it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so let's run through the other categories. Did you want to go through?
Should we go through the acting categories?
Yeah. Let's go through the acting and then director and picture.
Yeah, that sounds good. So supporting actress nominations were for Wendy Hiller in A Man for All Seasons, Jocelyn Lagarde in Hawaii, Vivian Merchant in Alfie, Geraldine Page in You're a Big Boy Now, and like we said, Sandy Dennis won for her role in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
Yeah, so I mean, I've only seen the 2 movies that we've discussed out of here, so basically for me it's, did you like Sandy Dennis's performance or Wendy Hiller's? And I think they're both great, but I guess I would definitely pick Sandy Dennis out of the 2 of them, so I'm definitely okay with her winning this Oscar.
Okay. Looking at supporting actor, we have Mako was nominated for The Sand Pebbles, James Mason for Georgie Girl, George Segal for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Robert Shaw for A Man for All Seasons, and the winner went to Walter Matthau for The Fortune Cookie.
Yeah, so unlike Best Supporting Actress, I've actually seen all of these except for Georgie Girl. Mm-hmm. And
I thought you had seen Sand Pebbles.
Yeah,
It sounded
I've seen
familiar,
that.
so I figured you had seen that.
Yep, and then I've seen Fortune Cookie. It's the only Oscar that Walter Matthau ever won. He plays, so it's another Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau banger, of course.
So good. Yeah.
And I think it's a Billy Wilder movie because the three of them worked a lot together. Billy Wilder, doing Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, great writer and director. But Walter Matthau, he plays kind of a villainous role in this. So his brother-in-law is Jack Lemmon, who had, I think, an accident of some kind, and like a car accident. And Walter Matthau is a lawyer, and he basically is getting Jack Lemmon to play up his injury to try to win the lawsuit.
Oh my gosh.
So
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it's pretty good. I definitely would keep Walter Matthau as the winner. I mean, he was great in it, but it's his only Oscar win, and he's such a good actor. He needs to have at least one Oscar, so I'm definitely okay with that. But I did really like Robert Shaw in A Man for All Seasons. I'll say he's not in it enough for me to give him the win. George Segal would probably be my next choice for Best Supporting Actor. I know you said he's probably fourth on your list of the four of them, but he's still pretty good in it. So yeah, but I definitely agree or am okay with Walter Matthau winning.
Perfect. For the Best Actress nominees, we had Anouk Amy for A Man and a Woman, Ida Kaminska for The Shop on Main Street, Lynn Redgrave for Georgie Girl, and Vanessa Redgrave for Morgan. Like we mentioned, Best Actress went to Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could have ever beaten Elizabeth Taylor.
I don't think so.
She is amazing in this movie. She doesn't play the most likable character, but that's what makes her performance so good, is that you buy that she's this unlikable person. The Academy always kind of likes it when you maybe gain or change your body a little bit to fit your role, which she did in this, but going against typecast and everything, she's so good in this. It was her second Oscar win. She only won twice. But shouldn't say it like she underachieved or anything, but this was her last Oscar win, and she's so phenomenal in it.
Yeah, exactly. One thing we're talking about, she comes in, she's like, that line, what a dump. Like, she says it over and over, and she gets, like, more and more aggressive every time she says it. I believe the line is from, a movie that Bette Davis was in. It's the line from Beyond the Forest, and because the line in this became so iconic, like, everyone's like, oh my god, Bette Davis, like, say the line, and she's like, oh, I never actually said it like that in the actual movie, so it kind of, like, changed its tone over time, just because of, like, how well it stuck with the audience when Elizabeth Taylor did it. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That is funny.
Moving on to Best Actor, we've got Alan Arkin for The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, Richard Burton for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Michael Caine for Alfie, Steve McQueen for The Sand Pebbles, and then Paul Scofield won A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah, so
There's some big names in this category.
Oh, yeah, there are. I haven't seen all these movies, but I know. All of these actors are well-known, well-established. I don't love that Paul Scofield won this Oscar. Like, he's good in it, and I get he was in the play, so it's a role he's really familiar with. I would honestly give this to... It's between either Richard Burton or Steve McQueen for me. Mm-hmm. I've seen The Sand Pebbles. It is a longer movie. It's about the Navy, and Steve McQueen plays, I think, an engineer on a naval ship. He, owns that movie, and this is his only nomination of his career, which is kind of crazy to think of. He's had so many iconic roles. Richard Burton, he was nominated for 7 Oscars and never won. He holds the record, or ties the record with Peter O'Toole for the most nominations without a win, which is insane. I would probably give it to Richard Burton. I love him as George in this movie. The dry, sarcastic humor. I don't know. I just totally buy him in that role, but I would have been fine with Steve McQueen winning as well. I thought Paul Scofield was good. I wouldn't give him an Oscar. I actually liked him in Quiz Show more.
Oh.
That's his only
Yeah.
other nomination of
Okay.
his career, and I think that's a pretty underrated movie. But
Yeah.
it's kind of between those two for me. I don't know how you feel. I know you probably haven't. Those are probably the only two movies that you've seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen The Sand Pebbles, but...
Any opinion there?
I mean, yeah, I loved Richard Burton's performance in that. He was just so good top to bottom. Like you said, he was just so believable. Like every emotion, every action that he had, even just the way he like stumbled through their house. You know, they got like a low hanging lamp over a desk, and he just like he kind of hits like the light switch on it, and it's just I don't know. Everything he did was just like, yeah, this is what an angry drunken guy would be like at 2 a.m. when he's fighting with his wife. You know, so yeah, I think he did a really good job. So that's why he would get my vote. Moving to Best Director, we have Michelangelo Antonioni for Blow Up, Claude Lelouch for A Man and a Woman, Richard Brooks for The Professionals, Mike Nichols for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the winner went to Fred Zinnemann for A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's the same as the other ones. They're the only two movies I've seen. It doesn't really matter to me who wins Best Director. They both, Fred Zinnemann had bigger, larger sets to work with, whereas Mike Nichols was really intimate with one or two settings. I mean, pros or cons, either way, they both ended up winning. Fred Zinnemann, this was his second Oscar, I think. He directed From Here to Eternity, which won like a decade earlier, and Mike Nichols would win for The Graduate the next year. So they both are well-known directors, maybe not at the time for Nichols because it was directorial debut. It doesn't really matter to me who won for this one. They both did a good job.
Okay, that's fair. The Best Picture nominees that year were Elfie, The Russians Are Coming, The Sand Pebbles, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and the winner, of course, A Man for All Seasons.
Yep, and we had already talked about what we think should have won. We both think Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf should have won, at least over A Man for All Seasons. The only thing I'll add is I've seen The Sand Pebbles, and I liked that, I think, more than A Man for All Seasons. So I'd probably put that at number 2, even ahead of A Man for All Seasons.
Yeah. Alrighty. That sounds good. I think that wraps up the 1966 Oscars.
All right, so on to either what'll be our best top 5 of all time or our worst one. I think I had kind of said, like, half jokingly, the movie's A Man for All Seasons. Let's just do our top 4 seasons. Yeah. And that morphed into top 5 days, weather related. So
this is where you insert the clip from Miss Congeniality where it says, describe your perfect date. And she goes, April, I don't even remember the day. I think it's 23rd. April 23rd. You only need a light jacket.
Yep.
So that's what we're going for here.
So we have to list a season, a temperature range. We're putting rules to the madness here, and like a forecast.
This is quarantine, folks.
Yeah, this is absolutely quarantine life. So
quarantine content.
Yeah. So.
But honestly, being cooped up in the house for the last 2.5 months, this was actually really fun to think about different weather days and experiencing in the outdoors. So I actually really enjoyed this. I hope all the listeners enjoy this top 5 if you've made it this far.
Yes.
I'll put that caveat in. If you're still listening, I hope you enjoy this.
All right.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So my number 5 is thunderstorms, but like during the spring, but only while sleeping.
Ooh.
Falling asleep to the sound of a thunderstorm.
It's like a springtime storm? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's my number 5. I always love like going to the cabin and fall asleep and the roof is like right at your face because we're falling asleep in like the loft. And thunderstorms or rain, just you can hear it landing on the roof, and I love falling asleep to the sound of thunderstorms.
Yes, I agree. Sometimes I wish I always hear like the next after storm people at work or whatever like, oh my god, the storms last night. I'm like, I always sleep through them. But you're right, if you can fall asleep to the sound of rain, the sound of storms, I do like that. Good choice for number 5. My number 5 is in the spring where you have that first, like, warm weather day. Like, the sun is out. It's, like, the first time it's hit 40 degrees in, like, 3 months. And it's sunny. And it's like, oh, my God. I'm going to roll my window down and get some fresh air. I love the feeling of, like, the first, quote-unquote, warm day of spring.
Ooh, all right.
40 degrees going into winter is like, oh my God, it's so cold. But once you come out of, like, freezing Wisconsin winter and you have that first spring day above freezing, it's like, oh, it feels glorious.
And you're like, we don't need to use the furnace anymore.
I know. It's like, open the windows. I don't need a jacket. Yeah, that I love that feeling.
All right, nice.
That's my number 5.
All right.
I got so excited, and that's only number 5.
Oh my God. My number 4 is in the summer when it's like in that 70s to 80s kind of temperature range. It's like a clear sky, sunny day, but windy. Mm-hmm. Get that wind in there, because if there's no wind, then it's just too
wind
hot.
Or like breeze?
Like
how strong of a wind are we talking?
Are we really diving into this a little bit?
I don't know.
I'm going to ignore that.
We don't need to.
So it's windy, because I don't like humidity. I don't want the humidity. I want a little bit of wind. Because if I don't like it if I'm just standing outside after 10 minutes and I get sweaty. I hate that. So I need a little wind. And maybe this is kind of when we're turning on the air conditioning for the first time. I like that because I like the cold being inside.
Okay, that's good. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
My number 4 is a winter day when it's like 32, like 33 degrees. So, like, you get those, like, big snowflakes. You get those, like, really big snowflakes just, like, slowly coming down. And it's, like, silent outside. I love that. Like, I love when the snowfall, like, makes things
I'm going to
silent.
hold my opinion on that.
Okay. But, you know, it's, like, I love that. I don't like snow very much, but I do love those moments where it's, like, you just look out and it's, like, all the snow's collecting on the trees. It, like, crunches on your footsteps a little bit. That's my number 4.
Okay. My number 3 is in the spring, kind of the mid-70s temperature, and it's like a sprinkle of rain. Little bit of rain. Mm-hmm. Like enough where I can still golf in it, but it's like cooling a little bit, like that cool feeling. Like, I do like the rain. I like swimming. I like, so I just like staying in the rain, feel a little sprinkle coming down on you. I like that a lot.
Okay, that's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. My number 3 is also kind of rainy. It's like in the fall where you have a like steady rainy day where like the leaves are just starting to change color, so it's like it gives you a nice excuse to like wind down after a busy summer. It's just like, oh, I'm just gonna stay inside with all my sweatshirts that I finally pulled out of my closet and just like cozy up on the couch. I like just nice, calm, rainy days in the fall. Yeah,
well, that's kind of like the sprinkle rain. Yeah, I like just kind of sitting inside too. If just you don't have to do too much outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. My number 2 is kind of, you already brought it up, in the winter when it's like in the 20s or 30s, like you said, and there's no wind. You just get the big, heavy snowflakes. You stick your tongue out and try to catch them in the mouth. They're just coming straight down, and it's super fluffy. Mm-hmm. I love that. And also, like, we let the dog out, and he loves this. First sign of snow is running around. He gets a little snow on his nose, looking like a little drug dog, a little cocaine hound. But it's just snow, don't worry. Mm-hmm. Plus the morning afters are awesome, where it's just quiet and silent, and you just see all the white snow on all the branches of the trees. Love that. It's
very pretty.
That's my number 2. I actually love the winter minus driving in it.
Yeah, I would say dealing with that is not fun. But yeah, well, it's a good day. I had it on my list, so I agree. Mm-hmm. Let's see, what are we at? Number 2. This would be like a fall day where it's like 65 degrees, or it's like a little bit cool in the morning, but then like the sun comes out, so it's like the air is still cool, but when you're in the sun, it like warms you up. That is like my favorite. So we're talking like late September, where it's just like, oh, it just feels like football weather. You just like want to be outside, and I love that.
Mm-hmm.
a nice fall day.
Yep.
That's what I was aiming for when we got married, but we ended up. That was the day after we got married. It was a beautiful fall day. Our fall day was
cold and windy,
like 30-mile-an-hour winds.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay. That's fine.
That's pretty much what my number one is. Fall day, mid-70s, partly cloudy, quarter zip weather. That's what I love. I love wearing jeans and a quarter zip, and I'm comfy. That's the ideal day for me. You can still golf
gets a little
in it.
warm. You're in a t-shirt and jeans. You feel good.
Quarter zip.
Okay. Okay. I had an ideal, a little bit warmer, I guess.
All right.
So yours is a little bit cooler than mine. That's fine. That's good.
That comfy spot like that, I can still golf, but it's a little like chilly out, and like you said, with the leaves changing colors, it's aesthetically a little more pleasing too. That's my number one. I love fall. It's my favorite season. So like a nice chilly, not chilly, but like on the cooler side.
A little cool. Like I said, it's like the air temperature is cool, but like when the sun hits you, like the sun still feels a little warm. Mm-hmm. I like that. So my number one is honestly pretty much the weather we've been having lately. It's been so awesome. It's like 75 to 80 degrees, no humidity, mostly sunny, a little bit of a light breeze, like the day where you can literally spend all day outside doing whatever. You're not hot and sweaty and exhausted. You can just be outside, and all the trees are green, all the flowers are blooming. I love this time of year.
Mm-hmm. I know you love it more. I mean, I like that. Obviously, that's a fantastic day, but I know you like that more. I don't like being outside too much on that. I don't know. I shouldn't say it like that, but like I like being outside. But if it's too hot out for too long, I don't like that as much. Yes. I sweat easily, so
Plus, like we've said, like when it's nice outside, I feel obligated to be outside, and you're like, I just feel obligated to do whatever I want that day.
Yeah,
is more of like your style. So, but yeah, when it's nice outside, I'm just like, yep, just put me out there. I don't really care what I'm doing. I just want to be outside.
Yeah,
I love those days. So
there we go. Our top 5 days.
A man for all seasons brings us to our top 5 weather days.
So I guess let us know if that was either the best or the worst thing that we've ever done. I thought that went pretty well, though. Not gonna lie.
Like
I think it was good.
I had fun with it, and the fact that a lot of people are cooped up in their houses or whatever, here you go. Things to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Especially in the Midwest, where we have like very defined.
Say it's easy for us to do this. We have all the seasons. If you're in like LA or something, your top 5 days are just sunny in the 80s every single time, because that's for the most part all you get out there.
Yeah.
Or in Florida, it's just give me no humidity.
Hawaii, 85 degrees and sunny every day. All right.
Yeah. I kind of like having fall and winter, little change there.
I do too. As much as I like to complain about the winter, I love the change of seasons. I like having snow for the holidays. So
yeah,
there you have it.
There we go. Another great show.
Beautiful.
That's all we got for everyone today. So make sure to follow us on social media at OscarReelPod on both Instagram and Twitter. If you're listening to this, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you're listening there. Leave us a review. Maybe give us a quick comment on what your favorite or least favorite episode was. Just make sure to give us a 5-star rating along with that. And yeah, next episode we've got, I'm not going to give you the title because I've been doing saying out the emojis for the titles. So
yes, that's right.
I mean, you could. There are other ways where you could easily figure out what the emojis stand for, but whatever. So our next episode will be a movie from 1982.
A biopic?
Yeah. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, I don't know. Until next time, this has been Matt and Haley on the Oscar Reel Movie Pod.
Deuces.